Welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Consensus 2018 is in New York City. It's the world's largest blockchain conference. We've been covering it at the Nasdaq market site. Joining me for this segment is Charles Manning. He's the CEO of Kochava and XCHNG. We're going to look at blockchain in the advertising industry. Thank you so much for joining us at Market Site today. So it's interesting, when you think of blockchain, you think of technology and cryptocurrency and so forth, but it really does, or it's going to have a big impact in advertising.
You bet, you bet. We believe it's going to impact every supply chain out there, and digital advertising is one of those areas where it can really impact it because the product sold is in fact digital. And so as you deliver that advertisement, delivery has happened, and then the feedback loop of delivering that ad and paying for that ad is all electronic.
Right, because it's still done on paper contracts today for the most part in the advertising industry.
For the most part.
Right.
So the majority of ads are bought and sold through what's called an insertion order or an IO. Mm-hmm. And these are paper-based contracts, and then what actually gets trafficked is programmatic or done through machines. But the chasm between what's on the paper and what actually gets delivered is oftentimes pretty significant. And so there's an opportunity here to bring all that together.
So tell us about XCHNG's blockchain protocol.
You bet. So we built a system from the ground up knowing that consensus was one of the hardest things in blockchain to have a fast, high volume transaction throughput. And in digital advertising, you're dealing in record counts of multiple millions a second of ads that are being displayed and shown. And so any blockchain implementation that applies directly for digital advertising has to be able to keep up. And so we built something from the ground up that can handle that kind of consensus speed and volume while also having first-class actors in the ecosystem that are specific to advertising.
So do you think the exchange framework could become the industry standard in the ad space?
We certainly set out to build that very thing, and one of the caveats of what we decided to do was to make it open source. And so if we were going to do this and try to keep it closed and then license it, we think that would be a huge hindrance to adoption. And so not only a speed requirement for adoption and that be the industry standard, but also the openness that we've designed on the framework. And then the final piece is really about market adoption. So we have over 20 different ad network partners that are going to be contributing their inventory onto the system. And as you know, with any kind of marketplace, unless there's supply, demand won't come.
Right.
And unless there's demand, supply won't find it interesting. So we wanted to prime that pump with the supply first.
Let's talk about security to wrap up. 50 cents of every dollar spent by marketers is lost to fraud, mitigation, or mediation. That's a big number. It's
amazing, and it's amazing more people don't go to jail around this particular issue. Because if you think about other white-collar crimes, digital advertising fraud is pervasive. And one of the core things that we do at Kochava, which we've been doing for 6 years, is we've been finding fraud in digital advertising since the beginning and then helping our customer, the advertiser, mitigate that and remove it. Knowing what's there, we designed our blockchain implementation so that every actor was known and the capacity for people to kind of hide in the corners and to be opaque would be mitigated and removed.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us at Market Site. And thank you for joining me throughout the day. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.